Blue Origin just admitted something shocking. After 10 years and $2.5 billion, their New Glenn rocket crashed into the ocean on its first flight. The booster? Gone. The FAA? Not happy. But here's what nobody's talking about. August 15th could be their last chance. One mission, one booster landing. If they fail again, SpaceX wins everything. So why is Jeff Bezos betting it all on this single flight? What happens if New Glenn can't deliver? Let's dive right in. The answer lies in a story that started 9 years ago, when Jeff Bezos made a promise that would either make or break his space empire. Jeff Bezos stood before the world and declared, New Glenn will launch by 2020. 4 years seemed reasonable. After all, how hard could it be? Very hard, as it turns out. While Bezos was making promises, SpaceX was making history. Falcon 9 rockets were landing successfully. Customers were lining up. The space industry was moving fast, and Blue Origin was standing still. 2020 came and went. No New Glenn. 2021, still nothing. 2022, more delays. 2023, even more excuses. By 2024, industry insiders were whispering the same question. Is Blue Origin actually serious about this? But Bezos kept writing checks. $2.5 billion. That's more money than most countries spend on their entire space programs. Why would someone invest that much in what seemed like a failing project? Because he knew something the critics didn't. He knew that if New Glenn worked, it could change everything. January 16th, the daydreams crashed when New Glenn finally lifted off. It was beautiful. 322 feet of pure engineering ambition rising into the Florida sky. The payload deployed perfectly. Mission accomplished, right? Wrong. The first stage, the most expensive part of the entire rocket, was supposed to land gracefully on a drone ship. Instead, it became a very expensive piece of ocean debris. But here's what nobody talks about. Blue Origin went completely silent about what went wrong. No detailed explanation, no technical briefing, just a bland statement. The booster was lost on descent. This silence, it spoke volumes. When SpaceX loses a booster, Elon Musk tweets about it within hours. Full technical details, lessons learned, plans for improvement. Transparency builds trust in the space industry. Blue Origin's silence suggested something far worse than a simple technical failure. It suggested they didn't fully understand what had gone wrong. The FAA bombshell, 7 deadly sins. 3 days after the crash, the Federal Aviation Administration did something that sent shockwaves through the space industry. They launched a mandatory investigation. Not a routine review, a full investigation. This meant New Glenn was grounded. No more flights, no more tests, complete shutdown until further notice. For 3 agonizing months, Blue Origin waited. Their competitors kept launching. Their customers started getting nervous. Their investors started asking uncomfortable questions. Then came the bombshell. 7 corrective actions required. 7 fundamental problems that needed fixing before New Glenn could fly again. But here's the terrifying part. These weren't just simple technical glitches. According to industry sources, some of these issues trace back to basic design decisions made years earlier. How does a company spend nearly a decade developing a rocket, run hundreds of tests, and still miss 7 critical safety issues? The answer reveals something troubling about Blue Origin's engineering culture. The $10 billion question. While Blue Origin was dealing with their technical crisis, something even more important was happening behind the scenes. The Department of Defense was preparing to award the next phase of national security space launch contracts. $10 billion over the next decade. The military doesn't take chances with national security satellites. They need perfect reliability. One failure can compromise defense capabilities or waste taxpayer money on a scale that makes headlines. SpaceX had already proven themselves with dozens of successful military launches. Their track record was flawless. ULA had been launching military payloads for decades without a single failure. Blue Origin? They had 1 flight, with a crashed booster. But here's where the story gets interesting. Despite the failure, despite the FAA investigation, despite the obvious risks, NASA was still considering New Glenn for their Escapade Mars mission. Why would they take such a gamble? Because they were desperate. The space industry was becoming dangerously dependent on SpaceX. If something happened to Falcon 9, America's space program could grind to a halt. NASA needed Blue Origin to succeed, almost as much as Blue Origin needed to succeed. The pressure cooker, August 15th deadline. As summer 2025 approached, Movie Origin faced an impossible situation. They had to prove their rocket worked, but they only had one chance to do it. August 15th, the second New Glenn flight. Success would vindicate their design, open doors to military contracts, and establish them as a serious SpaceX competitor. Failure would end their dreams forever. The pressure was suffocating. Every engineer knew that the slightest mistake would be magnified across the entire industry. Every decision carried the weight of the company's future. But Blue Origin made a puzzling choice. They refused to share details about what they'd changed since the first flight. Complete secrecy, no technical briefings, no progress updates, just vague statements about addressing FAA concerns. This wasn't normal. The space industry thrives on openness and collaboration. Companies routinely share technical challenges and solutions. It builds confidence and trust. Blue Origin's silence suggested they were either supremely confident or desperately worried. The SpaceX steamroller. While Blue Origin was struggling with their second flight, SpaceX was making their dominance look effortless. 40 successful launches in the time it took Blue Origin to prepare one rocket. 40 perfect missions while Blue Origin was still figuring out why their booster crashed. The numbers were becoming embarrassing. SpaceX was launching more rockets in a single month than Blue Origin had attempted in their entire history. But here's what makes this competition fascinating. New Glenn actually has some advantages that Falcon 9 can't match. The payload fairing, the protective shell that carries satellites, is significantly larger on New Glenn, 7 meters wide versus SpaceX's 5.2 meters. This means Blue Origin can carry satellites that literally won't fit on any other rocket. Some customers specifically need this extra space. They're willing to wait for Blue Origin to prove reliability rather than redesign their entire satellite constellation. The question is, how long will they wait? The technical mystery that haunts everything. Industry experts have analyzed every frame of the New Glenn landing attempt. The booster descended normally for most of the flight. Then, in the final seconds, something catastrophic happened. Was it engine failure? Software malfunction? Navigation error? Blue Origin won't say. But here's what makes this mystery so troubling. The landing system should have worked. It's based on the same principles SpaceX has used successfully dozens of times. The physics are well understood, the technology is proven. So what went wrong? Some engineers suspect the problem wasn't mechanical, but computational. Modern rockets rely on incredibly sophisticated software to manage landing sequences. Thousands of calculations per second, split-second decisions that mean the difference between success and disaster. A single line of bad code can destroy hundreds of millions of dollars in seconds. If the problem was software-related, it raises uncomfortable questions about Blue Origin's programming capabilities. Software is where SpaceX has always excelled. Their code is legendary in the industry for its reliability and elegance. Does Blue Origin have the same level of expertise? The August 15th flight will provide the answer. The Bezos gamble. Personal stakes. Jeff Bezos has invested more than money in Blue Origin. This is his legacy project, his attempt to secure humanity's future among the stars. But personal passion doesn't guarantee success in aerospace. The industry is littered with brilliant entrepreneurs who failed despite unlimited resources. Bezos has been unusually quiet about the New Glenn setbacks. No public statements, no social media posts defending the program, no inspirational speeches about overcoming adversity. This silence is telling. Either he's completely confident in the upcoming launch, or he's preparing for the possibility that his space dreams might end in failure. The business world is watching closely. Amazon's Project Kuiper depends on reliable New Glenn launches. 27 missions worth billions of dollars. Blue Origin's lunar contracts with NASA require proven orbital capability. Everything is connected. Everything depends on August 15th. The customer dilemma, trust versus necessity. Blue Origin has secured impressive contracts despite their limited success. Major satellite operators have committed hundreds of millions of dollars to future launches. But aerospace contracts include escape clauses. If Blue Origin can't demonstrate reliability by specific deadlines, customers can cancel and demand refunds. Some already have. The Escapade Mars mission was originally scheduled for the first New Glenn flight. NASA pulled it at the last minute due to readiness concerns. This creates a death spiral. Launch delays lose customers. Fewer customers means less revenue. Less revenue means fewer resources to solve technical problems. SpaceX broke this cycle through rapid iteration and accepting early failures as learning opportunities. They failed fast and fixed problems quickly. Blue Origin is trying to succeed on their second attempt. It's a much riskier strategy, but it might be their only choice. The billion-dollar facility, infrastructure without purpose. Blue Origin has spent over $1 billion rebuilding Launch Complex 36 at Cape Canaveral. The facility is genuinely impressive, capable of processing 3 New Glenn rockets simultaneously, designed for the high-cadence operations that could challenge SpaceX's dominance. But the most advanced launch pad in the world is useless without reliable rockets. If New Glenn fails to achieve operational status, Launch Complex 36 becomes a monument to ambition without execution. A billion-dollar reminder that infrastructure doesn't guarantee success. The irony is painful. Blue Origin has built the capability for greatness, but still needs to prove they can use it. The August countdown, everything on the line. Right now, as you're watching this video, Blue Origin is in the final stages of preparing their second New Glenn flight. The rocket is stacked, systems are being tested, weather patterns are being analyzed. Everything appears ready. Appearances mean nothing in aerospace. Until that booster successfully touches down on the drone ship Jacqueline, Blue Origin's future hangs in the balance. One software glitch, one engine malfunction, one unexpected wave, any of these could end their dreams of competing with SpaceX. The space industry will be watching every second. Success could trigger a new era of competition in heavy-lift launches. American customers would finally have a real alternative to SpaceX. Failure would consolidate SpaceX's dominance and raise serious questions about whether Jeff Bezos should continue investing in space. The moment of truth approaches. This brings us back to where we started. Blue Origin's confession of defeat, or their declaration of war against SpaceX, August 15th will provide the answer. If New Glenn succeeds, Blue Origin transforms from a company with potential into a company with performance. They join the exclusive club of organizations that can reliably reach orbit and return. If New Glenn fails again, the consequences are severe. Military contracts disappear, commercial customers flee, investor confidence evaporates. Jeff Bezos would face a choice: double down with even more billions, or admit that some dreams are too expensive to achieve. The next few weeks will determine whether Blue Origin becomes SpaceX's greatest competitor or their most expensive failure. But here's what makes this story so compelling. Nobody knows which way it will go. Not the engineers, not the customers, not even Jeff Bezos himself. The only certainty is that August 15th will change everything. So here's the reality. Blue Origin isn't just fighting for market share. They're fighting for survival. 10 years, $2.5 billion, and countless promises all come down to a single moment on August 15th. But this story reveals something bigger about the space industry. Success isn't guaranteed by unlimited money or brilliant engineers. It's earned through relentless execution and the willingness to fail publicly, then get back up and try again. SpaceX proved this with dozens of early failures. Now Blue Origin faces their defining test. The question isn't whether they'll succeed or fail. It's what their choice teaches us about ambition, risk, and the price of competing at the highest level. What do you think? Can Blue Origin pull off the impossible comeback, or is this the beginning of the end for Jeff Bezos' space dreams? Drop your predictions in the comments, because in just a few weeks we'll know who was right. And if you want to stay ahead of every twist in this space race, well, you know what to do. The next chapter of this story is coming fast. It's official. The Pentagon just dumped ULA after 20 years. SpaceX won 7 missions worth $845 million. ULA, just 2 missions for $427 million. But here's what's crazy. ULA is literally tearing down their launch towers right now. SpaceX is moving in to build Starship pads on the same spot. Boeing lost $10.7 billion and wants to sell ULA immediately. Meanwhile, SpaceX completed 134 launches last year alone. What killed America's most trusted rocket company? And why is the military betting everything on Elon's team? Let's dive right in. The Empire falls at Cape Canaveral. The demolition crews arrived at dawn on June 6, 2025. Their target? The 330-foot mobile service tower that had stood guard over America's most classified launches for 23 years. Every GPS